Good afternoon. It is April 13th, Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. Tilton Northfield Fire District Building Committee is now in session. I apologize for appearing unprepared. That's exactly what has happened. We do have a quorum. We're going to move forward with some scheduling. Apparently, there was communication between Kevin, Kate, and Lisa about scheduling and him not being here. It's all new to me. So I am going to annually pass this meeting off to Lisa, as she has taken the time to create some documentation, some documents for us to review, and perhaps get into some scheduling. Lisa.
Do we want to review meeting minutes first for the next meeting?
I don't have them. Let me just run this. Why don't we have you go ahead and do what you were going to do, and then I'll see if I have the minutes, and we can roll through then. Do you have the minutes?
Yep.
Tim, did you?
I have the minutes right here. I don't believe I saw anything of.
I reviewed them, and your name is proper.
Yes.
Is Parker.
And she went into much detail.
Did they come from Beth?
Yes. Right after.
Right after the meeting.
Right after.
She's very, very prompt.
Apparently I continue to experience significant electronic.
Do you want a few minutes to read them, and then? Well, I can hand you my paper copy if you would.
Oh, you have a paper copy?
I have a paper copy.
Problem solved for that lady.
Yes.
While
You have
you-
a lot of notes on it.
Yeah, I have some scribblies on it.
Lisa, are these
Those are mine.
notes something that needs to be added, you think?
Those are my edits that I want to recommend that there were a few grammatical things and some words that jumped in.
Yeah, she does a pretty nice job taking a meeting and condensing it so you know what went on, doesn't she?
She does a great job.
I move the minutes be approved.
I'll second it. Is there a discussion?
On the first paragraph, March 19, basically after, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Fifth line, after the word proposals, basically it said, Lisa stated she would like the design cost removed from the minutes and does not believe that they should be speaking publicly regarding the details of the proposals. I did state until the contractor is chosen. I don't intend to not ever give the details, so I just want to put after the word proposal until the contractor is chosen. And then under bidding process, it's going to the third paragraph, last line, the last two lines. Lisa noted there's a different process. The word then, it should be than, P-H-A-N. It's basically design build process. You left out the word build in that one. It's discussion ensued regarding different processes and amount of control over the build and design. I think she meant design-build process. So that was, and then the other one had to do, the next paragraph basically, we talked about special inspections involved checking welds. Density of materials, I probably said density of soil materials, but I'm just editing it. Soil compaction and compression testing of the concrete, or concrete testing, you don't need the word compression. Because you don't do compaction tests of concrete. So it's basically soil and concrete testing. So I'll mark that up. Where do I do, send it to?
As long as you say it out loud, she'll
Okay.
hear it in the minutes, and she probably reviews it
Oh,
tomorrow.
Okay, well then what I'll do is, that last line of that paragraph should say, Lisa replied that it involved checking welds, soil compaction, and concrete testing. On the next page, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, Kevin C. suggests, it should be suggested. On the next paragraph, last line where it says they, similar to what they would like to do, I want to, who's they? Us? Tilton Northfield Fire Department?
TNFD.
TNFD should, instead of they. And that was it.
Further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes with the corrections, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
If you want to hand me that, give it to me when you're done, I'll make sure she gets that paper, just to make sure
Sure.
there's no mistakes.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take a picture before I give it to you, so that I have a record of it.
So, before we move forward, did everybody get the email? We talked about the process of getting bids and all that kind of stuff. Did everybody get the email that I sent them about our, the fire district's policy about this? So, it's actually, you were part of this. It's developing a purchasing policy for the fire department and signing contracts for anything over a certain amount of money need to be advertised. And we did not advertise for this, so we're breaking out a new policy.
Well, that's for proposals, right?
Yeah.
Cost proposals is the
I
way
seem to
I read it.
remember that was a while back, though. That would have been somewhere between 2007 and 10.
Yes, and it was amended since then
Yeah.
by a board of fire commissioners amended it at some point, in 14 or 15. I sent it out to everybody, but
Apparently, I'm having an issue with things coming from TNFD. And I get other emails, I get business emails and stuff, but I don't know what it is.
Want a paper copy?
That's twice. Yeah, 9/17/09, I'd have been involved with that. And then it says 7/11/17. Question of all phase and experience. Maybe use proof of when they'll be sent. Well, that's things in the phone.
And I also have the question into our attorney that we haven't returned.
On the first process,
What was
was
the-
there an advertised RFQ?
The very first one?
Yeah, with Warren Street and Bowman
Yes.
Page and Stone that was
Yes.
advertised and
Yes.
they submitted.
Yes.
Is there money left in that budget?
We have $100,000 for design right now. Design, engineering, all that kind of stuff.
That question you just asked was referencing to when?
The prior, they did they had an architect and a contractor under
last
contract for the last time, basically to review a bunch of options between
Okay.
Park Street and other places.
We advertised for requests for proposals from architects because we were using construction management. We hired Bonnet, Page and Stone at the time and went through a design process, and then we went out to bid for contractors and had a process to which was advertised, and there were like 5 or 6 proposals, and we had a grading thing. I thought, I can't find any of that stuff. And Bonnet, Page and Stone came out to be the one that the commissioners chose to be the contractor that worked with that architect. And then that was for the school property, and they kept that in place for the Manville Road as well. When that failed, they just said, well, we're going to do Manville Road now. And they did also a renovation design for Park Street at the same time. And then when this committee was formed, they made the recommendation to the commission to go with design and build. And they did. So, the way I read the policy is, I think we probably should advertise instead of making phone calls. But I'm not saying what we receive, the companies that receive are replied to the phone calls, being very qualified companies to construct the project.
I guess that's where we need the legal counsel, is to say that, was it okay to contact 5 contractors, or should have been advertised and you might have gotten 20 contractors proposing? I don't know. That's a legal issue.
Yeah, so he hasn't
on
answered
how-
my question on that yet,
Right.
because he's probably working on the water district crap.
You know, so I don't know. It's a legal thing I can't answer. And none of us can, really.
Well,
Just because it's
the
design
commissioners can
built.
waive that policy.
I was going to say that if any.
And if they were willing to do that, that's probably the best thing they could do. Because if they're not willing, we clearly have no choice. Backpedal, hit the ground running.
I think is a thing in there that says they can waive it when it's in the best interest of the district.
Yes,
So,
something to that effect.
Yeah, that's,
I
So
mean,
this is
basically all
probably
your,
something that we should have, as a committee, talked about before we made phone calls. But I wasn't attending the beginning of this committee because it was during the summer, and the committee decided to meet on Wednesdays when that was unavailable.
so I guess to go back to the commissioners and say, will you waive the
and
requirement?
if they won't,
Then
that creates
we
a
start
certain
over,
amount
but
of-
it's not really starting over. I mean, it's a matter of writing out an RFQ.
it's a lot of work that's already been done.
Correct,
I
and it's
hope
kind of
that these
unfair
contractors
to these contractors to do that.
not say, never mind you, and we'll continue to participate.
I think the best thing is if we can run with these,
Absolutely. That's in the best interest
that's in the best interest of the district.
of right now, absolutely.
So,
But
I guess
think
what
to
we
do that,
can
they've
do
got to
is-
waive that policy.
right, I think what we can do is continue on as though that's what we're gonna do, and we get confirmation from the commissioners that
When do they meet again?
May. Either 3rd or 10th.
After we meet again, right?
Yes, we meet on the 27th again. They meet on the 3rd or 10th. Looks like the 10th is what I have on my calendar, but that.
Well, I would suggest we keep moving forward like we have been. It doesn't hurt us any, we get good at reviewing.
So
No, it doesn't hurt a bit. I mean,
What would be good if John was here, because we could, I can put it before the commissioners, but since he's the commissioner,
all right.
more appropriate for him to place that before the commissioners, in my opinion.
I agree with you.
I mean, they know that we've
But you could-
done this, so.
John, you said John's the chairman,
John's the commissioner.
so you could contact him, say this, and let him decide, right?
Well, I think that would have to be voted by commissioners. I don't think John by himself.
No, I don't mean that he would decide to waive the policy, I mean, he could decide if he wanted, or would have, you know, we have these inherent problems with boards of three. 'Cause he really can't send an email to another commissioner asking, what do you think about this? Because as soon as he responds, they're in trouble, but you could.
I can.
You could send it, and then they would respond to you only.
Yes.
Learned that lesson a long time ago.
Yep.
That could work.
I'll give John a call to see if he's talking.
And then it would get on the agenda for their meeting, is that how you would do it?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
one way.
That would be one way of doing it, yeah.
So you had sent an email requesting comments or something, that's what I'm hearing?
I had sent an email, all I did was send out that spreadsheet
Got this, yeah.
and basically ask people to review the submittals and review this sheet, and that we were gonna go over it tonight. And really, the biggest thing is, does everybody agree with using this sheet, first of all? It is a typical way of rating contractors. What I did, if you remember a couple weeks ago, I gave you a more complicated one that had all this criteria. And I said, well, that's not.
Had 10 criteria.
Right,
instead
and then I said, well, that's not fair because we didn't give these people that criteria, so how could we rate them on the criteria that we didn't give them? So I made it very, very brief and kind of subjective. We were reviewing the contractor's qualifications, the architect's qualifications, similar.
I have it. You have one?
I got plenty of them.
So,
So what I did was I truncated, and these are the criteria, the qualifications of the contractor. I separated out the architect because it's important to have both, and then I put similar project experience. And then we would interview. So what I did was, unless somebody wants to add another criteria,
so the weight numbers
yeah, we can
are a
discuss that
percentage of
next.
100?
Yeah, basically, I think, and because I created, I think the similar project experience is more important than, say, the interview. And if you look at the contractor qualifications and the architect's qualifications, that adds up to 40% anyway. And then I said, similar experience I lumped together, and we can discuss whether we want, I could break it down even further, but I put in 40. I could have done, 25, 25, 25. The other thing that we haven't put in there is a cost thing that we can discuss later. But I think we ought to review, these were based on a qualification submittal. I think we ought to review them based on no cost first. And then we can talk about whether we want to add a cost component that we will ask for in the interview. Some of them gave us costs, some did not.
Yeah, I don't think we should consider cost at this point.
And I think
Because
the
it's not
costs
the-
they gave us were are apples and oranges, but I have a way If we want cost to be considered, you ask for, well, let me get into contracts. Design build can be done two ways. There's the AIA document that I think I sent everybody as a reference.
Yes, you did. You probably
I have a paper copy. In any case, what it does is you move forward with the design build, you get to a concept, and then the contractor gives you a price for the whole design and construction. And so that same AIA document has what they call a design build amendment, where they basically determine a price. And you can do it based on construction management or lump sum. I would recommend.
guaranteed maximum price.
With a guaranteed maximum price. I would recommend we do construction management with a guaranteed maximum price.
But that's different than what we've already decided.
No,
It's not.
no, it's part of it. You have, see, the design build, it's still a design build contract.
The main difference between design build and construction management. In design build, you hire the contractor who also hires the architect. In construction management, the fire district would hire the architect and separately hire the builder.
Not in construction management, in design, bid, build.
That's what we,
That's a separate thing.
Yes.
That's another process.
That's another process. Design, bid, build is where you hire the design architect, then you bid the project to contractors.
Yeah.
Construction management is a form of management throughout the construction, the actual physical construction, where it's open book. The contractor pays X dollars for the concrete work. You see that bill, they mark it up, their overhead and profit, and here you go, owner, pay my bill. The reason it's nice is it's open book. The other way you can do it is lump sum, and they say, this is what it's gonna cost. That has its benefits too. But in a pricing, COVID put a whole spin, because I actually was an owner's rep on a project throughout COVID, and the biggest issue was manufacturers and suppliers were not coming through on their original bid to the general contractor. So we may still find that when this project's ready to go. So construction management with a guaranteed maximum price is very nice, because you see real costs. There's no hidden cost. And you're able to look at it and you can still make decisions and say, well, we can't afford that. Let's do this in the earlier stages of the project. Once it's built, we can't do that.
in your opinion, is one any better of a deal, if you will?
I like the construction management because you see exactly what you're getting.
But do you see it
When you do a lump
before you
sum,
get there?
when you see, yes, but when you see a lump sum, the contractor's gonna try to stay under that lump sum. Same as the construction manager, but you don't see how they're staying under that lump sum, because they've bid it.
You're letting them make choices instead of.
Yes, well, I mean, the construction manager still will make choices, but it's all open book. And they have a contingent, with the guaranteed maximum price, there's a contingency that's built in there. It's right in their bid sheet usually. And that contingency is for them to use however to make the project work under their guaranteed maximum price. Whereas so I guess it,
You still have contingency with either process.
right,
You have, it just doesn't,
right.
it won't work.
It won't work either, yeah, so you need the contingency anyway. And I don't think we need to make that decision now, other than that's one good way to compare price, because when you do a construction managed project, all you really need to know is the contractor's overhead, profit, general conditions based on the percent of the contract, because that's how they did it. So if one contractor charges 6% and one contractor charges 8%, there's going to be a difference.
Is that a likelihood?
You can, yes.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there are variations.
Yeah. So if you were to bid the project, it's too late for us to bid the project. Well, it's not too late. We could still bid the project after conceptual design is done. But the problem with that is, once we select somebody,
We wanna ride
stay
them.
on the same horse. You know, we're already jumping horses in the middle of the stream.
Right.
It makes 0 sense money-wise.
What's happening right now is a big concern to me as far as appearance to the public.
So,
I mean, you see where I'm,
yeah, I do. I mean,
Well, we haven't made any decisions that are not in the best interest of the public. You're saying
that
just
could
because
be-
we
that's-
advertise?
That's actually subjective too. You know, it's up to the public to decide, did we make any decisions?
Well, what I'm saying is selecting somebody based on qualifications is a very normal process.
Yes.
yeah, we think.
And all I'm saying is, if you want to add a cost component in there, we could say, yes, we're gonna do design build, because that's already sort of been decided. But we're also gonna throw a cost component, because we know when the project moves forward, we're talking millions of dollars. We wanna know what it's gonna cost. If we ask the contractors that we shortlist and interview based on qualifications to give us their overhead percent, you know, based on a project range, you know, they'll give us, you know, okay, it's 6%, it's 4%, it's 8%. They do this all the time. And then, but then we'll then we'll have a way to compare cost. We can include cost in the rating, but it won't be 100% like it would be like if you bid it. If you bid it, it says, oh, they're the lowest cost, we're going with them. And that's not always in the best interest of the public. But if we choose somebody, or we rate somebody based on qualifications, then we ask the top 3, please provide us, and we can do a little sheet, bring this to the interview. Basically, it'll say, you know, insurance based on percent of project cost, general conditions based on project cost. They'll just do it as a percent of the cost. And then you'll be able to compare cost, and we could put another line item at the bottom that says, you know, cost. Okay, and I actually have a formula that you can compare the costs based on the rating, based on the lowest one and the highest one. And so we could throw a factor in as a means, so that we've balanced everything. We've balanced qualifications and we've balanced costs.
That sounds like what we did in the past. It sounds just like what we did.
Now, some of these gave us some costs, but they weren't, they're hard to compare. And we could actually ask for a fixed cost for just to get us to town meeting. Some gave it to us, some did not, because it was never clearly spelled out to them that they should give us a
Well,
cost.
they didn't know that might be what we expected.
Right, but there's no reason when we interview, we're gonna have to send a letter. I'm not gonna call anybody. We should not call contractors. You can call them and say a letter's coming, but the letter should say, we're gonna have interviews on such and such a date, your time slot is this. Please, you know, maybe even have it attached, please be prepared to provide us with this information. And we'll have a sheet that says, you know,
Everything should be in
construction cost.
writing.
Right. And that way it's very, very easy to track. So, I mean, I see no reason that we can't move forward where it's still very fair to the contractors and very open to the public, and it's in their best interest.
Okay, so how do we do that?
So, what I was doing was starting with this, this project, the scorecard. So if we agree to use that weighting, we can actually select. I don't think we should interview 5 contractors, but I think that'll show up when you start rating, if each one of us rates these, and I don't know if you want to do it, has everybody read all the proposals? We could do it, give it a shot as a group, or we could do it
I've
individually.
been through them more than once,
Okay.
but before I separated thoughts to paper,
Yeah.
I'd want to have done it more recently than
Then no.
in the past.
Do we want to just discuss some comments? I know Tim has some comments on some of the proposals, I do as well.
Okay?
We could do that if that's what we want to do.
Are we satisfied with
With the weighting.
the weighting? Or is there, should there be any other categories added?
I guess that's the big question, because this, what you don't want to do is start going through this and then re-weight this, because you could then manipulate.
Right,
The
so,
sheet,
so one of the things that I noticed in most of the literature that I read is that most of the companies, even though they say they do design build, or construction management type of builds.
Well, the construction management and design build and bid
Bid design,
Design.
bid, build.
build are still construction managers. So, I think they're all construction managers. That's pretty clear. And I don't know that I mean, they've picked teams and many of these here work with the same architect. Some did not, some did. We'll flush out those. And whether you count it against them or count it as that's okay, that's again a reviewer's discretion. And I think once we discuss it, I think people will probably go, oh yeah. But I guess the question would be is, we want to determine does the 20-20-40-20, is that okay? Because that's something we need to determine first before we start rating contractors.
But if there was another
Category, we
category,
change it.
that changes the 20-20-40-20.
Yes, it
doesn't
does.
Yes, because it has to add up to 100.
Now, we can add right in there, if we want to put a cost in there, I can put the word cost in.
Given what we have, the documentation, I don't think that's
We
a
can't
fair
review
thing
it.
to ask at this point.
Well, we would do it at the interview, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Or I think, or you select, I think using this form, we can select the contractors we feel are the most qualified. We still have to interview them.
Yeah.
And then we can always look at a cost factor
So-
afterwards.
You said you don't think we should interview 5.
No, I think we ought to rate them all based on this. Okay. I think we get rid of the interview score to start with. You still leave it in there, but I think when you figure out that if you can't get as high as somebody else, even if you get the full 20 on the interview, then why interview? You're wasting their time and ours.
So the first thing I discovered when I went through all 5,
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind that any one of them could build fire station. Could.
But one doesn't have an architect.
Right, but there would need to be one involved, right? Unless they're
Right,
expecting
but
us
if you're
to
gonna
say,
commit, so in part of reviewing all these, there are some clear ones that they've done it together, they've done it numerous times, whereas others, okay, they did one or two, and I'm not sure one of them built the fire station. I'll ask them, but I don't wanna get into that till we
Right.
determine the
yeah,
20,
no,
40,
that's
60.
the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that.
Right, but, so I think what we have, from what I've seen, we can use this spreadsheet and I should have numbered the criteria, 1, 2, and 3. We can basically total those scores up for all 5 contractors, and you will have a base score without an interview that you can shortlist from. What do you call it, shortlisting?
So what is,
So even though it's not adding to 100, it's gonna add up to 80 is the best score you can get, right?
so for example, contract of qualification would be a number between what and what, 1 and 100?
No,
see the
score
little
block
green
up
blocks at the
above?
top?
Up here.
Yeah, I can
Sorry,
see
it's
the
tiny
board.
print. So basically, you give them 100 if, they're just on spot, they've done
Okay.
this. You can say very good. You can even use 95 if you want to
Yeah.
personally go, well, okay, they're sort of
So this is a
score.
a good
Key.
pass, fail.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
So I think, we could actually go through the 5 proposals, rating them with the first 3 criteria, and you're gonna get a score on each one of them.
And
And I'm saying that if you get a score that's much lower for 2, I don't think, you're gonna get 3 that are the top ones,
I
right?
think they're gonna float to the top.
Right, and we can decide at that point that we only interview 3.
So
Unless they're all tied. If they're all tied, we interview all 5.
if we have 5, it's 5, right? 6.
Right.
If for example, if I have the first contractor total is different, and I guess where I'm going is contractor A could come out on my list, top of the line,
Right,
but it's bottom of the line on yours.
it can.
How is that then averaged
Well,
for the
what
top 3?
we can do it 2 ways. One is, and the way I've done it in the past is everybody does their own,
Yep, that's what I was
and
thinking.
then we average the scores.
Okay, so,
Basically, I average the bottom line scores. Or you can do it in the total, it doesn't matter, you'll get the same answer. Or we can do it as a group and agree, okay, this first contractor, they're 100%. We all agree that person's exceptional. Somebody in the group would say, nah, I don't think so, because of, and then we all go, okay, well, let's give them a 95. Or that's the other way to do it, is as a group. But individually, I think you see more
plus you're not,
led by anybody.
led, and it's not being done in the short time of the meeting. Because I know I sit up
Right,
most every night reviewing stuff,
right.
and I'm in my own comfort, I can sit and think
Right.
clearly, and I don't,
Yeah.
there's no other talk. I'm very distracted by more than one person at a time, because I can have to focus on you if I'm talking,
Right.
and I do talk, so I'm not.
So I sort of drew or made this up as though each reviewer would do it by themselves
And come to a meeting.
and come to
with
a
it done.
meeting with their results.
Yeah.
But then somebody could say something in the meeting and say, oh, I missed that, I want to change my score.
That's fine, but that would be,
But it's
lot
after
less-
they've come here with this physical paper.
and it'd be a lot less interruption
Correct.
in the meeting with spinning the thoughts.
Because I did notice that some, were missing certain things. and I'd share that, but I don't want to spew anybody.
No, see, that would be
And
the
I-
leading
and-
part we want to stay away from.
Right. And, you know, Tim might come up with the same conclusion, hey, yeah, I caught that too. Somebody said, oh, I missed that, then you, okay. You're still allowed to change your score, but it's, you have a paper trail and it's transparent, and at the end, each one of us has this form. We write our reviewer notes, which kind of say why you gave them that score. It doesn't have to be detailed as to why, but, and then you, each reviewer signs it and dates it, so it's a document that says, you know, we reviewed, rather than just saying, I choose this guy.
So, and if the interview comes out, right,
Right.
so that makes it 25 for the, it's more than that.
Well, I'm
No,
not
you
gonna
just-
change
you
it,
don't-
I'm
you
not
don't
gonna
change
change it, it's just that you're gonna,
You're
we're
still
gonna.
gonna come up with a number, it's
we're
just
gonna
gonna be
come
less
up-
than 100.
It's gonna be,
Okay.
the maximum you can get is 80, right, before an interview. And then if
If you
somebody,
exclude interview, yes.
right,
based on
right, so
40.
it doesn't, I could have made the total number anything, really, it's just a matter of,
Yeah. I was gonna say that, but I
yeah.
thought it'd be confusing.
People like 100, so I made it 100. I could have made it 98.2.
I like 100.
I just left it that way, and I said, well, okay, we'll, doing the first three criteria, you'll come up with probably the top three, or you'll have, if you have 5 ties, then we interview 5 people, but I think at the next meeting, it'd be nice for everybody to have some members, and we can,
So the way this committee is set up, do you do one of these as well?
I could do it, but I don't have a vote, unless the commissioners give me a vote.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. So,
So if you don't have a vote, you probably shouldn't do one, because what, if you come to, well, would that be leading?
I still have, the district hired me for my professional opinions.
Absolutely, but it seems like that was kind of removed when whoever decided you don't have a vote.
A long time ago, so.
Was
you
it?
don't have a vote on the committee, or you don't have a vote for what?
I don't, I'm a
A non-voting member?
non-voting member
Of
of
the
the committees,
committee?
as it currently stands.
And that was previous as well?
Yes.
It was the last
that
committee I was
at the-
on. Before that you were?
Yeah, this committee, I don't know what the commission said, but I assume I'm still on non-voting committee.
Well, I think you're correct. Oh,
It seems odd
You
that
don't
the fire
count.
chief would not have a vote in this, but
I would think that you would.
Well,
Because you're
but
the
in
end
this
user.
exercise, isn't his opinion valuable?
Yes, I
Should
think he should have.
Shouldn't we want him to do this as well, so we can be part of that
Well, if
conversation?
you, I mean,
We don't maybe include his totals when we total it all up, but once we each have our own, and we're having the discussion about why we made those, I think he should be part of that discussion.
I think so too.
But that's not-
Maybe another thing to go to the commissioners and say, we'd
that's not,
like,
yeah, that's not our call, though.
no, that's the commissioner's call, right?
Yeah.
Well, we can have him do it, and then we can ask the commissioners, does his count or not when it comes to evaluating? It has to, you have, this is somebody you're gonna be working with. You can't just say,
Well,
she's
I mean,
not gonna work with the,
If you look back into, has the committee changed name since I've been involved? We started
three
before
different
COVID.
names.
It has changed name.
Yes.
Okay, so in the other committee, whatever that committee was called, when we had decided one place at Park Street,
Mm-hmm.
you came out with a letter that said, I don't like that idea,
I did.
right?
Yep.
And in this committee, I want you to correct me if I'm out of, if the action isn't there, what I said. You, at one point, said something about relative to connecting or not connecting the buildings, and you didn't like that idea.
I said that about this committee, when
That was at this committee.
and somebody mentioned that you're gonna build a building here next to this building, and maybe we'll have a breezeway in between, and that's when I said, I'm never gonna.
Okay, all right, so,
Right, but that's the decision, we haven't even started the design yet, so we don't even, it's like.
no, but here's my point, if he doesn't have a vote, doesn't mean that people are not gonna listen to him.
Well, they should,
So,
Should listen to
well, I'm not saying they shouldn't,
right.
I'm not saying that at all. But my concern becomes, having said that, and I assume that you would repeat that in a bond meeting, and if the committee has said, we want this building like this, and you stand up and say, I don't like that idea, that can tank that bond and we get nothing again.
But, yeah, we all,
Right.
To agree on something.
Yes.
So I do the same thing. Thanks.
so,
You know,
But I
I'm not suggesting for a minute that you
Right.
shouldn't speak your mind.
But I think
I'll be the last
that the
person who will
chief should
tell anyone
have
they shouldn't speak their mind, because
input
guess what I
on
do?
selecting a contractor in
That's-
our.
I'm not, it's not to squelch or anything else,
Right.
it's just that, like anybody, and because you wear the white shirt, more people look to you than look to me. That's just to be expected. So,
Right, and that can happen no matter who the contractor is.
Absolutely.
But I feel that you should have an input in selecting the in the recommendation for the contractor.
so
Granted, it's only one out of
the,
whatever, but,
I think that the way that would go is when we've, through the interview process, there would be a motion, a second, discussion, and a vote relative to which one to take. That recommendation would go to the commissioners, but he has no vote. He
He has
can't
no-
participate in that vote.
in that.
Not in that, well, not with.
He can't participate in the motion,
But
the
John
second, the
can, right?
discussion.
But John can? He's a
Yes.
John
commissioner.
can. Yeah, John absolutely can.
Okay, but he can still have input.
So
With
during,
this
We can take input from anybody we want, right?
Okay.
And that obviously I
Okay,
would include
so,
the guy with,
right, the end user
Guess what?
should be
All the
able
background
to look,
information.
yes.
so during the commissioners' vote, during the discussion period of the commissioners' vote, I can have input in that, during that discussion, just don't have a vote.
Okay. So I think we can still move forward with this.
nothing I say is saying, hey, hold up.
No, I
It's
agree-
not-
I
we wanna
agree, but
move. We got,
That was
the
a
wheels are
good
rolling, we
point
wanna keep them
to
rolling.
bring up, and I think that, yes, we want the chief to fill out the form as well.
Yes, because that's where all this conversation started.
So, okay.
You know, I think you should too.
So can we decide at this meeting that the 2020-40 is good?
I mean, it works, right? I mean, it could be anything.
It could be
right?
anything.
I didn't realize that these numbers are really,
Could be 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
Doesn't-
Right.
it's irrelevant what
It's
the number
right.
is, as long as we're all using the same number.
Right, that's really what it boils down to. And like I said, even on the score, where, go from 50 to 100, if you choose, you can choose 98 if you want. It's basically just some way of scoring.
So,
So you don't see it, this is nothing but a big formula on a spreadsheet.
Right, so when you plug in one, if you put in 100 on that first score, then you'll see a total over there will come out as 100 times 20 equals 20. 100%. So the spreadsheet will work if you plug it in.
Did you send it as a spreadsheet?
I
or
sent
as
both a
PDF?
PDF and an Excel, because I wasn't sure if everybody had Excel.
Perfect.
is anything else sent to us PDF? Because I've had trouble.
Most things I send to everybody is in PDF form because most everybody can If they don't have Adobe, they can download it and then get it.
I wonder if that's what my problem is.
But if it's sent directly,
Excel and.
if you don't have Office,
I do.
well, if you have
So I have
Office,
Microsoft Office Professional 2010, but
Yeah,
I got a thing from them saying,
they're not gonna support it anymore. They want you to do Office 365 and pay a yearly fee.
yeah.
okay, I can't quote that, but it sounds really close.
Yeah, yeah, I ended up having to do the 365.
So there's one, well, does that stop working? Is
I
that what
don't know.
not support means?
I think that the 2010 version will still work.
Yeah, you should still be able
You'll
to.
still be able to open documents.
Okay. So are we all good with what is being, so we need to get this information to the other members so they
So they all
hopefully
come.
can do the same thing. What's our time frame?
Well, I would think maybe we could do this at the next meeting.
We can
Everybody come in with their
Review them.
scores.
outside the meeting on our own, then come
then
back
come
next
back
meeting with the
Next meeting
scores.
with the scores.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Yep.
it's fine with me.
Send that out in an email to everybody if you like.
That would
Sure.
be,
And I'll send a read receipt request.
I don't know how to do that.
It's a checkbox that you have to,
Yeah.
because if
So-
you read it, then I get a message saying, I read it.
and if you don't get that, what happens?
Then I assume you didn't read it. So there's actually another box,
Receipt.
receipt request saying that, yes, you received it. Then there's another box that I can check to see if you read it.
So if I
If you don't,
don't get it, I don't open it, you know that?
Yes.
Oh, you know more about that than I do.
Yeah, I don't know how to do
Well,
that.
I worked with it a lot.
So, how will I, if I'm not getting it, how
I'll
will I
give you a
know?
phone call. I'll send it out.
Send me-
and I'll call you and say, did you get
Or
it?
send me a text or something, say, I
Yeah.
sent you an email, look for it?
Yeah.
yeah,
That'd be awesome.
I sent you two today.
You did.
Okay, so let's move beyond this, the form. Do we want to try to set an interview date? Or do we want to work back on a schedule? Is sort of what. We probably
Interview
ought to
date.
work back. to-
Interview date for the contractors?
Yeah,
Well, I think the other thing is we also need to come up with what that letter that we're gonna send to them,
for
is
the-
gonna include
yes, yes.
what we're gonna ask them.
In the interview.
And, well, we're not gonna give them the questions you're gonna ask in the
But
interview.
the information that we want them to.
The
put.
information that,
Right.
right. So what I can do by the next meeting is bring a draft of what I think we should,
Yeah, well, and what you outlined earlier, I thought sounded,
with the percent.
yes.
Appropriate. The other thing to consider is that golf season is here and Wednesdays are going to become unavailable.
When does that start?
And didn't we talk about
May
changing the
first.
date?
May 1st.
Didn't we have a discussion at the last meeting about
That sounds
considering
good.
Well, we
other
figured-
days?
I think the discussion at the last meeting was that we were probably gonna have to change it based on the contractor that we selected anyway, because they're gonna have their time restraints. But I don't know that the contractor's gonna come to everyone. So we probably should set up some alternate.
League actually starts on May 4th.
So we can get one more meeting in before that will change, right?
Well, we've got, yeah, April 27th.
So I'll come up with that form and I'll email it, just like I did the spreadsheet, so you won't get it. How's that sound? Like, probably at least a few days before the meeting, I will.
Probably
I will
there's this thing
email
where
it.
like you can fold it up, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it.
I could do that,
To
too.
your door.
That's only if you
Like in
take
the
your mail
olden
out.
days?
That's if you take your mail out of your mailbox. I go out there once a week,
Yeah, me too.
because it's just junk. All right, so I will do that for the next meeting. Did we want to work backwards from from town, I say
So-
town, the meeting. And so because we have a meeting date, right, for next year, 2023, the annual meeting. There's
Was
the,
it the first Monday after the second Tuesday or something?
right, and then you sent us the RSA, I think you did, right, that tells us when we need to have the public hearings,
Yep.
and it gives us.
One public hearing is required for one.
Right. But you gotta then
That
notice
amazes
it, then you have to notice it 7 days though, before it's held in
It's,
newspaper. I
you
highlighted.
have to notice it so many days.
It's working days though, right?
It's- No, it's,
I
No,
think Beth
the
sent
calendar?
us a calendar.
so it's so many days, it's within a time period,
I did not.
no later than 7 days before the meeting, but no sooner than
Oh,
30 days or something like that. I
Right,
can't
it's
remember
right,
what it said.
it's right here.
Yeah.
I think you sent this,
I
right?
did send it, yes.
So I highlighted it. At least one public hearing. The hearing should be at least 15 days, but not 60 days prior to the meeting. So we have that range. So what we could do is work backward
so
from,
whatever that date is, would be,
we've moved back,
we'd need to have something from a contractor
right.
previous to that, and is there time for that?
Well, that's where I can add that to the interview questions. Be prepared to discuss your schedule. This is our schedule.
So unless the commissioners decide to go with a Saturday meeting, which was discussed this year, if they leave it on Monday, it would be March 20th. If they move to a Saturday, it would probably go to the 18th.
So that would be the same day as school
So you
district.
can't do that.
No, school district's after the fire district.
Right, but there's no Saturday between the
So it'd
Monday.
be before the town meeting then. I think, so town meeting would be on the 18th?
So what's the date for the fire district if it's on Monday?
The 20th,
March.
So it would be the previous Saturday, so that's the 18th.
yeah.
So,
They would hold it on a Saturday, it wasn't the town meeting, that's what they would.
so it'd have to be, it's either gonna be before
It's either
town
gonna be
meeting
the
or after
11th,
school.
or it's gonna be.
Right,
It'll be
uh,
before town meeting,
Before town meeting.
yes.
So town meetings would be the 18th,
So it'd be the 11th.
so it'd be the 11th.
So that cuts that window a little, 3 days, 3 days.
So why don't we, just to
And then-
play it safe, let's work back
Maybe
from
try to
March
get a bigger
11th.
participation, that's what they were thinking.
Oh, yeah.
So if we work back from March 11th, right,
Not more than 60?
not more than
Asking
60.
townspeople to come 3 Saturdays in a row.
It'd be 3 in a row, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Yeah.
3 in a row.
I'll be in Maui anyways. No, not, actually, next year I will probably be.
I think you're
First
being
world
north.
problem.
Yes. Maybe I'll be back. Um, I
So
lost
60
my-
days from
from
March 11th is gonna be February 11th, January 11th, in rough numbers,
In
right?
rough numbers, right? So we would need to have something between January 11th and
7 days prior to March 11th.
15 days.
15?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So March 3rd, no, that's backwards. February 20, something, 8th, 7th?
First week,
Let's see, let me see, March 11th.
it'll be the last week in February.
February 24th. Right? Did I do the math right? 11 days in March, and 5 in February. So somewhere between January and February 24th, we need to have
That'll be the public
a
hearing,
public hearing.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have to, 7 days before we have the public meeting, we have to it has to be published in a newspaper. So that range will depend on whether it's the 11th. Basically,
Is that public hearing for the bond
The
or?
bond. which usually they hold at the same time that they have the public hearing for the warrant articles and the budget public hearing.
So that date would be picked by the commissioners.
Yes.
It'd be somewhere in that range, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the
Right.
windows you have.
And so working back from that, let's pick the worst date, which would be I'm talking about for the design team. They would have to have presentation plans. Well, we want a time period for public,
See,
What do
this
you
is
call
this
it?
is where that window just
right,
Yeah.
right.
closes.
Right, so, I mean, you want public education, there's a name for it, you said it before, community
Input.
input, and that takes some time, right? Because you're gonna wanna have some publications, you're gonna
So-
wanna have a web,
This year, we had our public hearings on Friday, February 4th.
And that was almost unattended,
On a Friday.
right?
Yes.
I mean, there were more committee members there than there were by far.
One person at the public show.
Was it one?
One. Paul Briscoe.
That's right.
No, I think I caught that meeting that meeting was on broadcast.
Well, it was recorded, you probably.
No, I think the hearing part was broadcast. No, it was a school district meeting. That's right.
We didn't-
School district hearing was
We
broadcast.
didn't do anything live or on Memorex, we did it on Memorex, actually.
Those school districts.
so for a community input period, what are we talking, a month, 2 months? By the time people see, I mean, you gotta,
They don't want to see anything until you have usually a conceptual plan.
well, that's why I'm working backwards, so I'm saying so if we have a conceptual plan done, how long do you want? I mean, you're gonna have something published on your website, you're probably gonna put something in the newspaper so people know to go look at the website, right? Or you might even have a community showing, a meeting, a public presentation, right?
We did that the last time, which you led, which I thought you did a great job, but it still was denied.
Yeah,
The
We did
public
the Tilton
pres-
School.
Yeah, that one, that wasn't that well attended.
that's
It's not.
Well, we had
I mean,
that,
about you.
we had that in the gym of the middle school that year. And
Yes.
it wasn't
Yes.
poorly attended, but let's say you could still find parking spaces.
There wasn't enough people there to get 2/3 of them to agree to go on.
Right, but this is just for information.
This is an information.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean,
So, a month?
So now you're talking, you want to have an informational meeting, a public hearing in December.
Yeah, nobody's gonna go because of
Yeah.
Christmas.
I mean, you might, we can't do this, but you might as well shut things off at Thanksgiving as far as getting anyone to do anything. The budget process continues, but those meetings are never attended. It's just a committee all by themselves.
All right, so I guess what I'm trying to figure out is that you could still have something on the website that gives people information because you're gonna have your consultant do it. They're the one, we're not gonna do that, that's the consultant that's gonna put together some kind of a presentation with plans. Maybe we'll be part of that.
So I'm thinking of a public hearing with the conceptual plan and discussion in the public has to occur, and I agree, sometime before Thanksgiving,
So early November.
early November at the latest.
Yeah.
I think the question is, or my thought process is, you need to come with some sort of design that you're offering so people can comment on it.
Right.
But it's like you want the comment before you come up with the design.
Well,
Nah.
oh, well, okay, there are charrettes, or there are design meetings where you do invite the public for their input. You can have the architect usually runs the meetings, and they ask for public input on their projects.
Given that, I don't know how much of the public is aware of what's required or needed in a career fire station. It's not a garage.
That's right, and it's not a park.
And it's not a park, it's not
That's
Main Street,
generally
it's
when
not
they
the
do it,
design
they
of
do
Main
it,
Street.
right,
But,
okay.
you know,
but,
whether
the,
you-
but the other side benefit of having that meeting is you get all those questions. So now you know how to prepare for the bond meeting, the presentation, and the actual meeting, the district meeting, so that you hopefully can answer all those questions in the documentation you're putting out and the information that's available, and then how your presentation runs. So those same people don't get up and ask a derailing question during the district meeting.
Or would that happen? A lot of those people, they only come to the district meeting.
Right.
You could have a comment period. I think like you said, if we do something in early November, people will ask questions then. You still have time to be able to, you're not gonna change your design based on public comment, unless something's earth-shattering that they bring up.
So what the public might want to comment on in the design process is what do they kind of want it to look like on the outside? Do they want it to be brick or clapboards or something like that? But
All right, so you don't see the value in having the input in it.
oh, I think, well, there's always value in trying to get input.
Yeah, I think we
But-
could do an information meeting in early November. By
Oh, I
then,
think we should do that.
right,
But input from the public on the design and what should and shouldn't be included in a fire station is, you know, it's like asking the public, what do you think should be included in a lab that examines, you know, rats?
right.
You know, the public has no real knowledge of what should be in there.
Right.
I mean, I can, and I have put together documentation, that there's a whole fire station report out there, still on our website, of the very first committee we had, which was really comprised of fire department personnel and a couple of residents that said what we should have in the fire station, what it should be made of, and like what it should be like. I think that's still on the website. That might need a little massaging right now, because things might have changed, but not a whole lot. It's hard, if you don't know anything about a subject.
Well, that's part of that whole allowing them to ask the questions so that you can explain to them that,
This is one.
you know, stuff is expensive,
Yeah.
Right.
you know? So when somebody comes up and says, you know, this happens at the, how come you have $50,000 for a police cruiser? I just went and bought a brand new car for $40,000. Well,
Where?
they don't realize that,
Where'd
maybe
you buy
that was a
that
bad
car?
example, but
Right.
they don't realize that you have to have it painted and, you know, logoed, and radios have to be installed, and lights have to be installed, and there's all these other costs. And so, right, the typical homeowner, right, I can throw up a set of shelves in that room and it's no
Right.
problem. Well, yeah, that's not how you do it in a professional building that's got traffic and. You know, a clothes washer in a decontamination room is not the same
I
as
have
the
an old
clothes
one I'll give
washer
you
in
for
my
that.
laundry room.
Right, that's what,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, washer, I can donate.
And that's
Inevitably,
true
there's
for
going to be,
education.
wherever it takes place, and it's usually at district meeting, someone comes up with a question that no one's prepared to answer, and it leaves that aura of, these people know what they're doing.
And you're really good at asking those questions.
So,
Sorry, I did that one year too. I said, this is not the way this is supposed to be done. And everybody was-
so if you get that question during a public input session, if that question comes back up at the district meeting where people are going to vote yes and no on the bond,
We have an answer.
that's,
Yeah.
I mean,
And if you don't, shame on
damage
us.
control, whatever you wanna call it,
Right.
that you prepared for that, you got that answer for that one bomb question. Because where it's 2/3 or 3/5, whatever the requirement is, it doesn't take a lot of swing one way or the other for that to be a go or a no. And the better you can be prepared, the better you can look, the better your chance for the go, as opposed to doing all this work, and someone gets up and says something that really makes 4 or 5 people who go, now they've become a no. So
So
I think that,
we can still
will there be an
have,
opportunity for more than one public input session? Because you got the windows closing, right?
Right.
Is there enough time
well,
between?
that's what I'm trying to figure
If
out.
we-
If we do one in November, early November, okay, so now we're working, I mean, November is, let's see, forget April, right? Forget May by the time you select something, so you're giving it, June, July, August, September.
How long does it take a group of
One of them
designers to put
One
this
of them
together?
had a schedule in there, and I thought their schedule was very tight. I would say you've got to give them at least 4 months.
I'm sorry,
I think you got to give them 4 months,
4 months.
just
So
because
we
you don't
just
know where
used-
they're working.
We've just used up the whole year.
But you, working back, you can, we can make it work.
But with one public input session.
Right.
That's what's happening with this.
I mean, you
The
could have,
conceptual
you
framework.
could have, still have one, well, the public hearing is an input section also.
Yeah. Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, nothing's, at the public,
Oh,
the
that's a
bond
bond
public hearing, nothing changed.
It's the bond,
It's just
a public hearing,
a public hearing.
that this is what we're doing. What are you saying, that you can't change any concept between the bond hearing and town, and annual meeting?
You can't change the,
Can't change the money, can't change the cost. Or the bond value, correct?
yeah, you can't change the bond.
You can't amend it?
It would have to be amended on town meeting floor.
Right, that's what I was talking
Right.
about.
So there's still, I think it's still doable, but we should keep going, right? No more stalling.
So we need to, everybody needs to do this part,
Right, for the next meeting.
review all the
And so then,
proposals and rate them.
right, and I'll send the, what we'll include in the interview letter. Maybe I'll even do a draft interview letter, how's that?
Okay.
Just so we can all talk about it and I have something to scribble on so we can
Yeah, that'd be good.
have it.
And should we be thinking about when we want to do the interview date?
That's where I'm saying that. So we're gonna meet the 27th.
27?
I'm not sure we'll get as far as selecting, we may. And then I think 2 weeks after that, is that too soon to schedule an interview?
Depending on what people's availability is, you know,
Right.
the contractor and us, right?
Well, yeah, a lot of times you just tell them this is when your interview is.
Yeah.
But,
And it's up to them to meet
It
it.
can't be like the next day. You gotta give them
Right.
time
We gotta
to
give them-
Gather the information.
we should give them at least 2 weeks to gather the information. So I'm thinking a month maybe from our next meeting might be the right.
So
We can choose that date at our next meeting.
when is that conference?
It's in May, isn't
It
it?
is in May.
It's the week of, what's 20, it's like 24th, 25th of May?
I think so.
From the next meeting.
Yes, the 25th, because I have their airline flights in my calendar here for them.
So we meet on the 27th, we also meet on the 11th.
Yeah, so they leave on the 23rd, and they'll be back on Thursday, the 26th.
So they won't be available for interviews until after,
Right.
which is June.
8th,
June 8th?
we do the second Tuesday, right? Or second Wednesday of each month?
Well, no, it's gonna-
I won't be here.
No, it's gonna change.
It's gonna
Oh, it's
change.
gonna change now.
The committee meeting date almost has to change.
Right.
So basically what we should do at our next meeting, we should determine the interview date.
Right, and also a date or day of the week
Unless
For
it's-
the-
for this
Thank you.
committee to meet.
So we got lots of things.
Yeah, because you can't do May, like if you do Mondays, May 30th is Memorial Day. You can only pick a Monday. The week of June 6th, that week would probably be the most.
Who's the first one?
Correct name for this sheet.
I've been
We
calling
call
it
this-
the core, CM selection scorecard, but that's really not, CM is probably not the right. Well, actually, they all are for CMs, construction managers. I've been calling it. We can call it anything we want.
Try to call it as long as we're on the same,
Same page.
have the same idea of what it accomplishes. You could name it, maybe you want, names are relevant.
Yeah, so I guess next meeting, if we at least choose the interview date and the meeting date moving forward, it'll keep us sort of on schedule.
If we have the interviews on the 6th, after the interviews, they make a recommendation. The commissioners are meeting on the 7th, I think. And then if you make a recommendation to the commissioners, they can hire them on the 7th. And then they can move forward.
June 7th?
Yeah.
June 7th is the meeting. So you're saying interview and make a recommendation which week?
June 6th. Well, the interview, you could have it on
The week before?
the week before, except Monday's the holiday, Wednesday I'm golfing, so you could have it on Tuesday, Thursday. But I know the selectmen meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Tuesday after a holiday would not be, if everybody's got Monday, I'll try and interview people on Tuesday. I don't think the contractors would be happy with that. But, maybe the June 2nd or 3rd, but we can discuss that at our next. I mean, I think it's still doable. I mean, we're looking for a concept plan and cost estimates by November, right?
So I would imagine, once we make the recommendation of the commissioners for a contractor, and they hire that contractor, does that affect the frequency of these meetings? Because they're gonna be working on it for X amount of time, which we are in limbo until.
How much input they need from the committee.
Yeah, in fact, in their proposals, they'll give us, and some of them did, how many meetings they will attend with us. And I don't know when they, what their schedules are. The other thing is, when they're doing concepts, they're gonna come up with drafts and drawings and preliminaries, sketches. And we're gonna see them, the commissioners also need to see that as well, right? How are we doing that?
They really didn't, in the last processes, they didn't really see them until they were almost done. Most of that was done through me because I know what design will work for our operation,
Right.
you're gonna put this over here and this over here. I said, well, that's not gonna work. These need to be together, and this needs to be over here because of.
So those kind of meetings will still happen, we will just not be attending you, but they're still gonna be meeting with you
I met with the design team or architects quite a bit.
quite a bit, yeah, during the day, during a regular working day.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So we would probably still meet just so that we can get an update. This is where they're at, these are the things they're asking, I guess that would make sense. But meeting throughout the summer is usually difficult.
And we'd like to take-
Vacations,
like to take those things called vacations.
yes. I take those too.
How's your boss about giving vacation?
He does what
Probably
he
a
wants,
stick.
what he wants, but he has none planned this year.
I do have vacations.
I do also.
And the wedding, not mine,
Get married again?
no.
Notice how quickly he answered.
No, I am very, very happy.
That was like,
Extremely happy.
that no was just,
My,
he answered that for the question was out.
my wife's daughter's getting married, so
Oh,
evidently you have to take part of that.
You probably should.
it's probably advisable.
Very advisable.
You really just said how happy.
That would be a good
things were.
choice.
Good way to change that. Okay, so the next meeting is the 27th. Before the next meeting, we're going to review and rate the contractors based on this form.
Yes.
Right.
We need to get that in, we need to get that information to
The rest of the
the
committee.
rest of the committee. So they will send it to folks.
And then we need to come to the next meeting ready to talk about when we're gonna have that interview date,
Right.
what date's gonna work for interviews. And then talk about, what day we're gonna change our meetings to, if we're gonna do
Yeah,
that.
we need to change the date of the meeting day.
Right.
Meeting day.
Next meeting.
And then we're gonna review / finalize that letter that we'll send out.
Right.
We'll bring that.
Because that letter will say the interviews are being held on such and such a date. Yours is at this time slot. Generally, what you do is an hour apart. Each, you dedicate an hour. It's a 30-minute interview.
The other 30 minutes is talking after the.
Yeah.
Making notes and,
Or you usually, everybody runs over, so if you say it's for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, their presentation, 10 minutes or 10 to 15 of our questions. That always runs over, so I always allot 45. But what you want is the person you're interviewing to leave, not have the next person come in while you're interviewing. I know sometimes where the competing people are sitting in
In the hallway.
or even in the meeting, and that's even worse because they're hearing and they're going, oh, they're gonna ask me this, and so they can prepare themselves.
So all the questions are the same for all the contractors?
You can ask
You can
follow-up
ask
questions
follow-ups,
of,
yeah.
of what, after they give you an answer, that the way they answer it, and they say, oh, I got a follow-up question.
Well, that's where I was
Yeah.
going. If,
But the main basic questions are all the same.
So actually, we're gonna have to come up with that too.
so if we ask one what color their washing machine is, we ask them all what color their washing
Right.
machine is.
Right, so we'll have to develop I know we threw a bunch of questions that we'll just have to narrow down to say, these are the questions we're gonna ask, because I know you had some good ones. I have got a sheet that I stole from another job that we can
So
edit.
you have that advantage.
Well, I don't have all that stuff anymore, but
So usually, it's done one or two ways. One person asks all the questions, and everybody sits and listens, or asks follow-up questions. Or you divide the questions, you ask question one, you ask question two, you ask question three, you ask question four.
So we'll need our own prep, because we're not used to doing this on a regular basis. good experience.
Well,
Is that it?
Anything else?
We've got plenty.
I would agree.
So are you going to contact Evan and John and
Yeah.
with that list of, Matt?
No.
I'm going to send an email out to the building committee. Hopefully tomorrow, but I'm out of the office most of the day tomorrow. But I'll try and get it first thing in the morning. I don't think it'll be definitely.
Okay,
With all that information to them.
thank you.
Because if I'm not getting emails, I probably don't want to trust him to send one. Especially the. Right.
And
Go ahead.
we'll also contact John Silly and see if he's comfortable with presenting that variation of our bylaw, of our
Purchasing policy.
purchasing policy of not advertising.
All right. If nothing else, we will be adjourned at 6:47. Push the back button.